What do you think, Kate?
Raindrops.
It's hailing right now. It's very stormy, but we can see the sun off in the distance. When was the last time it hailed here?
Oh, a few days ago, but you weren't here.
Oh.
That's right. You got it. High five. Yeah.
Oh, we got it on video. It's perfect.
Yay.
Well, the rain has cleared. The sun is shining. I'm on spring break, so I have the whole day to hang out with my son and my wife and talk about music. So let's get started. We are on numbers 389 through 380 on the 500 greatest albums of all time. So number 389 is The End of Innocence by Henley. Unfortunately, I was not able to listen to this album because Universal, UMG, who owns the rights to the record, has not made it available for streaming on YouTube or any other service. So we're gonna move on. Number 388 is The Indestructible Beat of Soweto by well, it's a compilation album by various artists. All these artists are from South Africa. The music on this album is joyful and exuberant. It mixes traditional styles of South African tribal music with more modern ones in a really wonderful way. Despite the fact that it was released sort of in the middle of apartheid, you can get a sense of a hope of a better future just through the music itself. That might be a function of the style, but the sense of the music is that no matter what is happening around them, things are going to get better. Things can get better. One thing that I love about listening to music from other cultures is the use of harmonies, like how other cultures blend their voices in different ways. It's really interesting. Of course, I was raised and trained in Western harmony, you know, classical, rock, blues, and country harmony. So I'm well versed in all that. So to hear how these African harmonies come together in these songs is really special to me as a songwriter. I think this is fantastic. I'm gonna give it a 4. Number 387 is Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers by Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang Clan is a group of 9 rappers. And the fact that each of them contributes meaningfully to both the lyrical content and the feel of this album is extraordinary. This is one of the hardest hitting, gutsy, and in-your-face rap albums I've ever heard. Every moment of it is visceral, exciting, occasionally brutal. The rapping is fantastic. The songs are good. This is one where as soon as it ended, I wanted to go back and listen to it again. A warning, this is not music for kids. It's not music for those who are sensitive. It is hardcore music, but it is a must listen for any fans of rap. I'm gonna give this one a 4. Number 386 is Pretzel Logic by Steely Dan. So this is, I think, Steely Dan's 3rd album. It's one of their earlier ones, but it already demonstrates their fluidity and harmony, their use of funky and extremely tight rhythms between the bass, the guitar, and the drums. They've got these delicious harmonic shifts that occur out of nowhere, and yet, even though they are often kind of strange at first, they always make sense in the context of the song, and they serve the song to propel it forward and keep it continuously evolving, yet in a familiar way. It's really interesting the way they do that. They use the rock idioms, they use jazz vocabulary, but it always remains accessible, even at its most experimental. The middle of the album has some quirkier moments that if you're not ready for them, it might throw off some listeners. But overall, I think this is a brilliant album, and I'm gonna give this one a 4. Number 385 is Love and Theft by Bob Dylan. I'm still figuring out a little bit how I feel about Bob Dylan in general. On first listen, the thing that stands out to me is that he's not a great singer. So by that I mean the timbre of his voice. He does this weird sort of dropping off at the end of phrases. It reminds me of Sprechstimme, which Arnold Schoenberg pioneered in the early 20th century. But when you listen closer, where he places syllables of each word and how he inflects them in the context of the song is fairly sophisticated. In addition, the lyrics themselves are incredibly dense. You have to really listen to it as sung poetry. It's not pop music. It's not really rock music. It's something else. The music itself is fairly anachronistic, an amalgamation of early American styles. And we lost a boot. Do you want your boot on? You want it on. And you want the buckle on? Okay. Sort of roots rock. There's like some hillbilly music in there. I think it's used purposefully to complement the flavor of the album in general. I guess probably a great album, but for me, I'm gonna give it a 2.5. Number 384 is A Quick One by The Who. Great playing on this album. I enjoyed the music itself. The production is terrible. For me, Keith Moon, who revolutionized how to play the drums and influenced so many, countless others throughout the years, Keith Moon steals the show on this album. Unfortunately, the production is so poorly done that it's almost like he's playing in another room. The bass is up front, the guitars are sort of there, but you can't hear those massive drums. It's really a shame that his drumming is placed so far back in the mix. That was a disappointment. I think this is an uneven example of what The Who was capable of, but you can hear in some of the songs their ambition both lyrically and musically. I'm fairly well versed in the history of progressive rock, and you can start to hear threads of where it would go in music, such as the music on this album. I'm going to give it a 1.5 because I think even though it has its place in Who's discography and an early progressive rock movement, I don't think it's a particularly great album on its own. Number 383 is More Songs About Buildings and Food by the Talking Heads. And I just hate new wave music. It's hard for me to pin down exactly what I hate about it, but so far almost all the music that I've heard on this list and before that's been in the that's classified as new wave has just been so obnoxious. Usually technically all right, but almost across the board these guys have vocalists that don't really know how to sing, which is a bummer on a song. It's dry music, it's self-aware, I think at least a little satiric, but it always leaves me cold, and this album is no different. It doesn't have any heart. It doesn't have anything that pulls me in and says, oh wow, this is really great. It's missing more than something. It's missing a lot. So I'm gonna give this a 1.5. I can't say that I enjoyed it. Number 382 is the self-titled album by The Modern Lovers. And this is basically exactly the same as the last one, except better production, better performance, and worse singing. It's mostly terrible. I'm gonna give this one a 1. So number 381 is The Smile Sessions by the Beach Boys. So this album has a really, really interesting history, which is too long to get into in this video. But basically, the Smile Sessions it's planned to be the album, the follow-up to Pet Sounds, which is their big album from 1963. Due to production difficulties, Brian Wilson's mental deterioration at the time, the album never cohered into into a final production, and it was in various pieces all over in different studios. I think it was recorded in like 4 different studios. It took them decades to finally pull all the pieces together and produce what would have been. The version that I listened to has 40 tracks, the first 19 of which are like the main pieces of the songs in their most completed form, and then a bunch of outtakes, alternate takes, behind the scenes looks at different pieces of the recording of the album. Everything on this album is pure beauty. You can almost hear how he's trying to get something that's in his head and get it out to be played by the musicians in the bands. As a songwriter, as a composer, is really extraordinary to listen to get an idea of how something like this has come together. I really can't say enough about this. You have to check this out. It is really amazing to listen to. Another one that I can't get enough of, and I can't say enough about. I'm gonna give this a 4. Maybe don't do that though. Maybe not. That's super loud. Do you have to? Okay. Finally, number 381 is Funky Kingston by Toots and the Maytals. So Toots and the Maytals were one of the early reggae bands. In fact, they joined the same label as Bob Marley almost at the same time. How do I put this? It's jivey, it's funky, it's got a lot of bounce, it's a lot of fun to listen to. This is great driving music. It's good music for barbecue. Even though these guys talk a lot about social change and things that they're politically concerned with, the music itself is lively. It makes you want to listen to it. It makes you want to sing along. A lot of good things going on this album. I really think it's, as a reggae album, it's one of the best I've ever heard. So I'm going to give this a 4. So that was fun. As always, thank you for watching. Please hit subscribe if you'd like to see more. Leave me a comment below if you agree or disagree with any of my observations. And I will see you soon. And maybe Kingston too.